Welcome to livingpianos.com. I'm Robert Estrin. Today the subject is why you must be able to play your scales on autopilot. Now what am I talking about? Autopilot. Well, there's something that I've talked about in the past of motor memory or tactile memory, and while this is oftentimes a dangerous thing to rely upon in your piano playing, because you can take a wrong turn here or there if your mind isn't cognizant of where you are in a composition with repeats, expositions, developments, changes of keys. You must have an intellect about your music. Otherwise, as I said, you can end up in the wrong place in the middle of a piece. But why is it you absolutely have to be able to play with just motor memory in your scales? Well, it's because of the fingering crossings. Scales encompass thumb crossings in the right hand going up, and with the left hand going down. And of course you have third and fourth finger crossings in the left hand going up and in the right hand going down. Third, fourth, third, and in the right hand coming down. Third finger crossing, and then the fourth finger crossing. So they keep alternating, third, fourth. All major scales and minor scales have the same basic premise of third and fourth finger crossings in one hand going up, the other hand going down, and thumb crossings in one hand going up, the other hand going up, and the other hand going down. That's a whole lot of stuff to remember. That's why in the early years of study, rather than working on scales which have this complicated fingering to learn, just to get the sense of playing keys, which is basically the whole idea of practicing scales, is to develop fluid notes in a row so that you can play beautiful streams of notes with evenness, with jewel-like precision of the notes, of the space between the notes, the volume of the notes, an evenness and a clarity. What if you can't get this fingering? Well, that's why I love to start students with the very first exercises in Hanon, which have more and more different patterns, but none of them involve finger crossings, like the first Hanon exercise. And then for the top. And then there's other patterns. You get the idea. So you get to work out your fingers, develop strength and fluidity and speed, all without worrying about the complexity of these finger crossings. Now, why do they have to be on automatic pilot? Because you think about when you play a scale, and you're playing a fast scale, there just isn't time to think of those fingerings. How can you think of a thumb crossing here and a third and fourth finger crossing there? You can't think of all of that. You have to be able to just do it without thinking about the actual fingering, so you can focus on the sound, you can focus on the expression, the volume, the evenness, the clarity, without thinking about the fingering. I had a video a few weeks ago you might have seen on how playing the piano is like walking or learning how to walk. At the beginning, it's a struggle. If you've ever watched a toddler taking their first steps, the concentration on their faces is unbelievable as they figure out how to traverse one step to the next. You know, being upright, we don't think about it because we walk on automatic pilot. Imagine if every time you had to take a step, you had to think about what's involved. All the coordination, all the muscles, the foot muscles, the leg muscles, all of it. Keep your body upright. It would be almost impossible to do anything while walking. Yet we walk all the time and don't even think about it. That's exactly what you must do with your scales. Now, how do you get to that point? Well, first of all, you should only start scales when you have some strength in your fingers. If you're just starting out, learning scales and just doing scales in an octave or 2 octaves is really not as great value. You really want to play all your scales in 4 octaves right from the get-go. Because even though the fingering is the same, you figure, well, if I can do it in this octave, why do I have to do it in that octave? Well, the reason is that, you know, when you're down here, the angle of your arms is quite different from up here. It feels very different here than it does here. So you must get used to playing the whole keyboard. So if you're not really up for that challenge yet, you're better off doing maybe 5 or 10 hand exercises. Get your fingers strong, get fluidity so you can play them, you know, start with 1 note to the beat so you can really see how your fingers are working, then 2 notes to the beat, working with a metronome, and then finally 4 notes to the beat. And do a whole bunch of these hand exercises until you can play them in a fluid manner with strength, with evenness. Then you are ready to embark upon scales. And that's when you work on them exactly the same way. Work on them in 4 octaves, just like in Hanon 60 selected studies for the virtuoso pianist, which is actually the Bible, or like the Bible of scales and arpeggios, because it has all the standard fingering that 99% of pianists utilize. So I recommend that highly. Get to the point where you can play your scales without thinking about the fingering. And then when you have scale passages in music, you don't have to start practicing that like it's a fresh thing. It's already there, literally at your fingertips. So that's a lesson for today. Get your scales on automatic pilot, on motor memory, on tactile feel, so you don't have to think about the fingering. They just do what they need to do. If any of you touch type, as I do, you know that you don't even have to think about where your fingers are going. Now, those of you who have to kind of hunt and peck, you know it's a little slower, a little bit harder, but you can get pretty fluid at it. But when you know where those keys are without even thinking about it, it makes it so easy. And you want your scales to be that easy as well. Once again, I'm Robert Estrin. This is livingpianos.com, your online piano resource with over 1,100 videos. Can you believe it? So if there's a subject you're looking for, go to livingpianos.com under videos. There's a little search box, and just about any subject you can imagine, I probably have a video there. But if I don't, email me and I'll make one just for you, particularly my Patreon members. Thanks for joining me. Subscribe and ring that bell for notifications of future videos. I try to keep them coming for you. I really appreciate the support. We'll see you next time. Again, I'm Robert Estrin.